believe that in half an hour...
There's just one more thing. And then you are officially part of the family. So, at midnight, you have to play a game.
Why? Hide and seek? Are we really gonna play that?
Good luck.
I know you're in here.
I'm explaining a film from 2019 titled Ready or Not. Spoilers ahead. Enjoy the content. The scene begins with two brothers, Daniel and Alex, scurrying into the house out of fear. Alex, Daniel's younger brother, was then told to hide in the cabinet. A group of disguised individuals then pursued Daniel and instantly shot the helpless man with arrows. When the man fainted, Helene, the bride who was also the man's girlfriend, could only sob violently. A lady called Grace is rehearsing her vows 30 years later since she is about to wed Alex, the guy of her dreams. Alex, Daniel's younger brother, was instructed to hide in a cupboard at the beginning of the movie by Daniel, Daniel's elder brother, and they are now grown-ups. As they conversed, Grace revealed that she thought all the families in attendance were peculiar, particularly the Le Domes family, who didn't like her since they believed that if Grace married Alex, she was doing so just for his fortune. In light of the fact that the Le Domes family is the richest toy business family in the world, Daniel arrived and ordered them to go. Oddly, Daniel told Grace she could call off her wedding right then and then if she changed her mind. Even though Alex had stated the same thing to Grace, she still wanted to keep the marriage going since she genuinely loved him. Long story short, they got married, and that evening as Grace was about to have a passionate moment with her husband, Helene appeared out of nowhere. They needed to get to the music room right now since a game was about to begin, Helene instructed them. The Le Domes family had a custom whereby when a member got married, the family would perform a game to commemorate their ancestors, Alex then explained to his bride. It is evident that Alex's mother and Grace were getting to know one another when Alex abruptly showed up and snatched his wife from his mother. Emily, Alex's younger sister, and her husband and children showed there a little while later. The father gave the command for everyone to enter the Le Domes chamber as the game got started. The father recalled how his father was once a destitute seaman who was eventually challenged to open a box and given the promise that everything within would be his if he succeeded. He reportedly succeeded in opening the box, which caused his fortune to instantly turn from poor to affluent. He subsequently built a toy factory, which was expanding quickly and making the grandpa the richest toy entrepreneur in the entire globe. Since then, every new member of the Le Domes family is required to choose a card from the heritage box and play a game as an homage to their ancestors at exactly midnight. When Grace takes out a card with the inscription, hide-and-seek game, it will reveal what game they will play later. Everyone who saw it at once was astonished, but they all made an effort to maintain their composure in front of Grace so that she wouldn't get suspicious. Father then instructed Grace to remain hidden until the next morning while the others looked for her. Grace instantly hid, and the maid started playing a tune to signal that the game of hide-and-seek had started. While her father was arming each of them with guns to later find Grace, Grace quietly withdrew into hiding. When Alex realized this, he appeared dejected. His mother begged him not to leave the room, and the father gave Daniel's wife instructions to prevent Alex from doing so because of concern that he would save his wife. Grace, who is bored in her hiding location, exits to find a new hiding place while the maid is shocked to see that one of Emily's children is not in the room. Grace was moving stealthily when Alex abruptly drew her into a room. It was discovered that Alex had escaped through the maid's room. The maid soon entered seeking for Emily's child. When Emily shot the maid in front of Grace, she was horrified. Due to her suspicion that the maid is Grace and the sound of gunfire, Emily appears to have chosen the incorrect target. The mother, who was aware that her servant had been shot, then gave the order to have the deceased's corpse removed so Grace wouldn't learn about it. Alex then instructed Grace to flee when everyone had departed. Grace, who was still in disbelief, urged her husband to explain what had actually occurred. Alex went on to say that, as previously stated, this was a bizarre custom of the Le Domes family. Grace was quite outraged when she heard that since Alex never claimed he would save his wife, despite having made that commitment. After that, Alex instructed Grace to wait in the kitchen since it was simpler there while he went in search of the kitchen door key first. Grace boldly entered one of the doors, which was not the kitchen door, just before reaching the kitchen since she had forgotten which door she should have chosen. Apparently, they were all there and shot Grace right away. Fortunately, Grace was able to flee and enter a room. Just as she was going to smash a window and flee, she heard footsteps approaching. Grace runs away, but Daniel suddenly bursts through the door next to her, declaring that he won't be arresting her. Grace has 10 seconds to flee before the others see her, at which point Daniel yells that Grace is in the room with him. Emily snatched an archer from her husband when she noticed the weapon she was carrying was missing after learning that Grace had fled. Her father was furious when he learned that Grace had fled. Once more, they opened fire at random just as a servant was ready to reveal Grace's whereabouts. However, instead of being alarmed, they chuckled at the situation. The father then recommended using the CCTV to track down Grace. Helene initially objected because it was against tradition, but they all eventually agreed. Grace finds a pistol hanging on the wall in the meanwhile. She then walks to the kitchen, but the door is still shut. When a butler arrived, Grace crept into cover, cautiously loaded a gun, and ordered the man to unlock the door. The butler didn't feel the least bit threatened since he believed the firearm was only for display. When Grace saw she was being surrounded, she swung a pot of boiling water over the butler's head and fled. While his father broke into the CCTV room out of suspicion, Alex, who was watching from the CCTV room, was happy that Grace had been able to flee. It's fortunate that Alex erased the CCTV footage first since his father was furious. Fortunately, Daniel was able to remove his father and Alex from one another, but his father promptly struck Alex in the head from behind until he passed out. Grace was about to flee via the food elevator when she was startled to see a maid there. She immediately urged the woman to leave. Grace was ultimately given a hiding spot by the maid, but not before she subtly announced that Grace was with her. But the servant got her karma. The elevator moved by itself so that it crushed her body and killed her. When the butler, who had been drenched by Grace with hot water, informed the father that another maid had been killed by the elevator, the father was furious. Alex will succeed his father when he grows old and passes away, so Helene urges her father to be kind with him. Their grandpa made a deal with the proviso that whomever opened the cursed box would be sacrificed. It turned out that the person who gave them the cursed box was the devil's manifestation. Alex opened the package early, making him the next victim, which is far worse. Grace and Alex both overheard the talk in the meanwhile while hiding behind the glass. Grace quickly leaped to her feet and fled, hiding in the shed but being pursued. Grace stepped out of hiding thinking the child wouldn't injure her, but she was mistaken. The boy shot her in the hand. It turns out it was Emily's son who had fled. After knocking him out and stealing his rifle, Grace was startled by the apparition of a goat, which caused her to stumble into a pit that was full of the Le Domes family's sacrificed bodies. Grace attempted to flee the area because she was so terrified. Unfortunately, when she was about to reach the top, the ladder suddenly broke, making it difficult for her. Grace hurriedly attempted to climb with one hand when she realized there were nails in her hand just as her hand was about to reach the top floor. Daniel's wife instructs the maids to pursue Grace as she approaches the gate. Grace tried to run away via the side of a gate that was only partially open, but the iron on the gate slashed her back as she tried to yell for aid at a passing automobile. Grace entered the woods since she still didn't feel comfortable, and the butler followed her right away. When Emily's son cries out to them, reporting that he managed to shoot Grace, they are seen disposing of the remains of the Le Domes slaves who had previously perished. When the butler eventually caught Grace, Grace choked him until he passed out and then rushed to the car and dialed 911. It found out that the automobile was so advanced that if someone was operating it, it could switch off automatically. He smashed the car's windshield and injected her with drugs as soon as he realized Grace was stuck inside and that the butler was still alive. Grace woke up and immediately started beating the butler till the car toppled when the butler carried Grace back to the home and told the Ludomes family about it. Grace managed to escape the automobile, but it appears that Daniel was already there and was aiming a pistol at her. Grace begs Daniel to let her go, but he strikes her with the weapon until she passes out. Alex's mother asks her son, who is still restrained, why he left the house as she approaches. If Alex decides he no longer wants to adhere to this harsh and deceptive custom, he threatens to kill his mother if she ever causes harm to Grace. Her mother is disappointed, why Alex is defending Grace, who she just met, rather than defending his own family. The Ludomes family started the routine as soon as Grace arrived at their house. Grace's hands were bound and she was placed on the table. The members of the Ludomes household sipped water one by one from the provided glass. All of a sudden, everyone started to vomit blood as the father was going to stab Grace. It came out that Daniel had added a chemical to the drink in order to rescue Grace. Unfortunately, the drink's effects are short-lived, and they soon resume pursuing Grace and Daniel. When Daniel's wife saw them, she became enraged because she didn't think her husband could save Grace. She then shot him, striking him in the neck. Grace struck the lady in retaliation, knocking her unconscious. She then grabbed Daniel's neck, who had been shot, and at that crucial time, Daniel ordered Grace to escape the cursed house. Grace departed after meeting Alex's father, but not before hitting her father-in-law with a lamp so hard that the drapes were scorched. When Alex saw his brother laying dead, he was also preparing to flee and was horrified and heartbroken by the death of his cherished sibling. Alex's mother unexpectedly showed up as Grace was preparing to leave the home, shot her but missed, then went up to Grace and strangled her. Grace was likewise critical, but she was able to remove the tablecloth covering the box. Grace attempted to grab the package, but her mother-in-law choked her repeatedly. Additionally, Grace succeeded in beating her mother-in-law by striking her in the head. Then, out of sheer rage, Grace repeatedly bashed her mother-in-law's skull on the box. Grace was startled when she heard Alex suddenly summoning her and saw her husband in the same mood in which he had murdered his mother. When Grace starts to melt, Alex tries to persuade his wife that he is not like the rest of his family. Alex then reveals his cunning side by yelling to alert the others that Grace is with him. The entire Ludomes family arrived, and they continued Grace's traditional sacrifice before dawn. This time, Alex planned to murder Grace himself out of retaliation for the murder of Daniel. Everyone present was startled as the sun suddenly rose as Grace was ready to be stabbed with a knife. The sunshine ultimately had no negative effects on any of them, but Helene still desired to sacrifice Grace by killing her. Helene abruptly disintegrated as she was going to shoot Grace. Then, when the Ludomes family blew themselves up one by one, there was the sound of music being played while hide and seek was being played last night. When only Grace and Alex were left, Alex asked Grace to forgive him for everything he had done and declared that he still loved her. Grace, who watched this, all chuckled with joy. However, Grace, who had become tired of Alex, declared that she wanted a divorce from him. Alex then lost his cool, and Grace fled the Ludomes family home, which began to burn as the movie came to a close. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments section. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to stay updated on future videos. Leave a like to support the channel.